You've just popped me so much more than you ever know. So, you've not done this before, this particular part of it. One day you will, and it'll be funny. But like when I'm doing the intro thing, I'm just like, I'm locked in on the time. I'm like, I don't want to fuck this up. I need to get that overlay on. And I saw private chat, and I was like, well, there's only two of us. That seems alarming. Like if Oracle has to do something, I feel like I'm gonna. So I look at it, it was just Oracle message me. I will not unmute. I will not forget to unmute myself. I was like, okay, fair. This is the historical Oracle. Oracle, how are you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic. Hopefully, there's not too much sweat on my brow as I pointed out to Joe. I ate some Southern Heat sweet barbecue chips. They were excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I was drenched with sweat. I was not exercising. I was just eating.
Well, I never related more to you than that, Oracle. And we share a lot of wrestling taste, but I'm with you on that, brother. I'm sweating, but not exercising, just eating. There you go, bro. I'm with it. This is a big one, man. I love the way that you put a bow on the last episode. We kind of concluded 95, and you looked ahead, and I kind of realized as you were talking about, man, there's an awful lot. I didn't realize how much of it was waiting on our doorstep for January. The notes were as big as they've ever been this month, wasn't they? This quickly.
Yeah, and I may have forgotten a thing or two. I mean, it was.
So let's quickly kind of. Last month was a big one for WCW's TV, right? They had a clean sweep, which kind of stunned us. Folks, go back and watch that because I think we did a nice job of like concluding for the year, right? So let's look ahead here. Is it fair to say, and I have to admit, when I looked at this stuff, a lot of this was very much like foggy for me in a way that the others wasn't, which was interesting. It's fair to say this is a month marked by a whole lot of changes of territory, right? Or changes of, I mean, it is changing scenery all around. Kind of set.
Joe has frozen.
One of the most important years in wrestling history, right? So set the stage best you can, my friend.
You good? You froze there for a second, but you're back.
Okay.
Or maybe I froze. I don't think so, but we'll see.
No, I think it was me. Go ahead.
But oh man, that would rule if I had to like do my own thing and I couldn't get out of the StreamYard and like I talked for like 3 hours. How great would
that
that
happened
be?
to Bob. Did you see that happen to Bob?
I know, that was hilarious.
But it wasn't a. So I thought it was my internet. I was like, oh, well, shit, I'd text you. And he couldn't get in either. It was a StreamYard thing. Bob was just stuck with the overlay across his face. He couldn't do anything. Yeah. It was my freeze. I could tell. Okay. Yes, 1996, one of the biggest years in wrestling history. Best you can. Let's kind of, set this stage.
So, 96, of course, is, man, it's one of the more interesting years in the history of American mainstream wrestling. A transition year, really, for especially WCW and WWF, and even ECW to a degree. Although 97 was more of a transition year for them, with the introduction to pay-per-view and whatnot. But there's a lot going on. So as we go in 96 WCW, we still have the 6 main players, which are Flair, Savage, Hogan, Sting, Luger, and Giant. Of course, Flair is a champion coming into the year. Pillman, loose cannon gimmick, really starts to rev up, especially after the Orndorff angle, which happened back in the December 11th, 95 episode, I believe. Then you start to see a little bit more of the mid-carders, Regal and Eddie, and they, you start to get to kind of have that. They were doing it before 95, but already you can tell that they're already kind of like instituting the Malenko, Alex Wright, Benoit, Eddie, Regal type of match on the Nitro even more consistently now. Public Enemy debuts. I mean, there's tons of debuts, tons of stuff like that. ECW has had a big month. Shane Douglas is back. Of course, we'll get into that. Cactus Jack is wrapping up his career in ECW. and sort of wrapping up 3 separate big feuds all at once, and it's really fun to watch. Of course, there's the big Beulah McGillicuddy babyface turn, which we'll get into the discussion on that. And that's a divisive one, but I want to talk about the execution and how it was handled, which was actually there's an interesting discussion to be had about that.
Okay.
But it was something that I ended up actually liking. Not necessarily the content, but anyway,
The way it was done. Yeah.
right. It felt very realistic, which was somewhat uncomfortable, but also kind of impressive.
Especially for that time. Yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah.
Right. But WWF, the Goldust character and is getting very interesting. There's layers to that. Billionaire Ted skits, WWF striking back in the war. Brett, Diesel, Taker, and this 3-way feud. Shawn Michaels is back, wins the Rumble. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I'm just kind of scratching the surface with everything. But it's as Joe can attest, the notes are packed. This is going to be we might be hitting the full 2 tonight. So
indeed. So let's get started, right? We'll start with WCW. They actually tied the month here. They won 2 weeks. ECW won 2. Also, WWF with just 1. But I thought we'd start there because last month they had the clean sweep. So this kind of, get some momentum on their side here a little bit. Okay. Now this is interesting, Oracle, because this is the first month for Nitro without an actual pay-per-view on the horizon, right? The Clash of Champions 32 event is what we're building to here.
Mm-hmm.
Before we even get into the actual show itself and the build, talk a little bit about where the Clash of Champions shows are at this point, because it's fair to say they've certainly changed in the WCW totem pole, right? They've very much changed their position a little bit. Could talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, this wasn't the first Clash that was totally like that. I think the first one in '95 was probably like that because it really started with the Hogan era, but I feel like the last Clash that had a mega moment or match, not a mega moment, but a match was when Flair and Sting had the title of unification where Sherry turned heel and joined with Flair right before Hogan program started, June of '94.
Yeah,
that was and then when Hogan comes in, that's kind of the Clash kind of gets decentralized, I guess would be what's a bizarre word to use for it, but it's kind of no longer a center of importance. A big part of me wishes that they still did the Clash through the end, particularly through '99. I mean, I don't know if I wanted to see a Clash in 2000.
No,
no,
I don't think so.
I don't think I would have minded to see a Clash in January and August of '98 and January and August of '99. And don't get me wrong, there would have been some probably bad shit on it, but
there was always some bad shit, right? It was just there's something to be said for those shows, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just they're 2 hours long, so a lot goes on them.
Yep.
But it's more I actually the August '96 and the January '97. I've seen both of those Clashes before. I've never seen the entirety of the Final Clash.
Which date is the Final Clash?
August of '97. It's the ending where the crow shows up.
Yes. The story is that I believe this is the case.
I think Stevie Richards wrestles on that show, if I'm not mistaken, and it's the main event Luger. Or I think it's Hall and I can't remember. It's DDP and somebody versus or DDP and Luger versus Hall and somebody.
When was the timeline that they was trying to get a TV deal with NBC for primetime specials? Was that a year later?
Talking about that was '98. I think '97. I think it was '98 or '99. It was '99.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was because that was their way of reviving the. Yeah, that came to mind when you talk about them ending quickly. Because Joe asked a good question. They're not drawing enough money for them. I think it was more a case of their model changed, right? Like when you
Yeah,
go to
because
12
they were running
pay-per-views
monthly pay-per-views. Yeah, it's tough.
and you got 2 TV shows, so live
Mhm.
it's just the whole thing changed.
I think ultimately Thunder's what killed what
Yes.
I think the Clash would have continued in '98 if they didn't have Thunder.
Yeah, once you got Thunder, it feels
Yep.
redundant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you and I as WCW nerds, we pop huge for the Clash and what it was.
Right.
But it's a very different
That's why I'm bitter about the 1 hour Battle of the Belts tapings.
Yeah.
In AEW, but that's the WCW mark in me.
We're getting it. It feels like it's becoming more like WCW every week, though.
Yes, and when they get those TV negotiations eventually, those renegotiations. I'm talking about the 2 hour Battle of the Belts, baby.
Yeah, there's some other WCW things they could do in their negotiations that could be bad, though, which we'll leave for another day.
I'm well aware.
Okay,
we've got an idea to run the head-to-head with SmackDown on Fridays. That would pop me huge, though. I won't lie.
I'm all for that. I just, I know it's a good
yeah,
idea.
We're getting off topic, but that would pop me.
Us getting off topic, never. Let's start with a big headline from the Clash: Sting and Lex from the tag titles from the Blue Bloods. Like I don't know if you're aware of this.
Well, they beat Harlem Heat for the tag titles, and then they faced
right. Of course, that's the Clash. You're right.
Yeah.
Regal works twice at that Clash, right? Because he works like the dark match.
I think he does work a dark match on that Clash. Yes.
It appears that he worked Benoit before the Clash, and then works the special.
Yeah, but he's very entertaining in the match. By the way.
Of course he is. Okay, so you're right. Harlem's Heat's where they won the belts. Talk a little bit to their month here. We're both high on that angle.
The most entertaining part of the title switch is when Jimmy Hart gave Luger like silver dollars to hit over Stevie Ray to win the titles, and like Sting is like hurt and like confused in the ringside. Oh, he won, huh? And then he looks in the ring and is like confused as to how they won, but he like still celebrates. But that's not even the funniest one. The funniest one was a few weeks earlier when Sting and Flair had a title match, which is pretty good actually. Probably the best Sting Flair match I've seen in this run of shows I've been watching. But it's the one where like Jimmy Hart's on the apron because he's managing Flair. Dungeon of Doom Horseman thing leading up to Uncensored, and Luger gets on the apron to try to like get Jimmy Hart off, and he takes the megaphone, and Sting gets Stinger splashes, hits his head on the megaphone, and then Sting loses, and then Hogan and Savage come out and like run off Luger, and like Hogan and Savage are like, "Did you not see that? Luger just cocked in the title," and Sting's like, "What? What happened?" He was like, Luger was that? He's like, "I'll tell you what, I'm gonna talk to him right now." And of course, nothing ever because it's Sting and he's a dumb babyface, and it's Sting. It's just like, well,
yeah. At least they're consistent with that character trait,
right?
Though, right?
I mean, Sting's dumb, but there's also something like it's almost like Sting knows, but he just doesn't care because that's his best friend.
Yeah,
that was always the best part about it.
Yeah. He's a good guy, basically, right? Like he's dumb, but he just, he sees the best in people. God bless him. He's the Stinger. He's still doing it, man. Balcony spots. Okay, the main event of the Clash is Giant and Flair over Hogan and Savage. There's a lot here, so let's just like try and piece this together. Okay, so let's talk about firstly the title. What's going on with the title with Savage and Flair, and then we'll get into the dissension between Hogan and Savage, which is a many year deep. Real and in wrestling storyline. So this talk about the match, and then we'll kind of delve off in many different directions. Go ahead, Oracle.
So the Savage Flair title switch.
Yes.
Oh God, which week was that?
I'm not sure.
They play hot potato with it.
Yeah, they're building to
Flair's the champ. Let me think about this. There were so many notes I had to put up last night, folks, that there's
a lot of overlap too in WCW, right? A lot of overlap.
I think is it the January? The title switch is the night before the Clash in Caesar's Palace.
There you go.
Where Savage was built back there, yes. And they're so like the match itself was actually pretty good. I mean, it's not great. Like
Right.
Savage and Flair, like Flair has like it's a lot of this stuff in the period is like people working in the Flair formula, but everybody has their own tweak. Like Savage is like there's a pace that Savage and Flair cut.
Mm-hmm.
That's even more so than Sting and Flair. Like Sting and Flair is like a lot kind of like stop and go, stop and go. Savage and Flair is like go, 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 go the
Yeah.
whole time. It's a fascinating dynamic actually. Match was pretty good. Arn came out, tried to help Flair. Hogan comes out, fights off Arn. Big pop for the title change. Post match is hilarious. Hogan celebrating. Savage, cut the music, you know. Savage is like, it looks like you're celebrating when I won the title. You know, I have terrible Randy Savage. I need to stop.
That was
But
pretty good.
you know, Savage is all mad that Hogan's celebrating, and Hogan's like, "You owe me a title shot, dude, and I was out, brother. I was suspended, brother, and I was supposed to be the next one in line, and you came out and took my title." You know, and they had this bickering back and forth, and then they end up. It's very funny, and then it's just delusionally funny, but it's hilarious. And then like they end up agreeing to a match at Caesar's Palace, which is a detail that people always forget. I think people forget about. They
Mhm.
had this Havoc match built for like 9 months.
Well, I can tell you now. I don't even know if I'd forgotten. I may have just never been aware of that
Right.
level of
Now,
detail.
obviously, they ended up being in I think in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, right,
Yeah.
for Havoc
Yeah.
instead of Caesar's Palace, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a 9-month build to this thing.
Wow.
No, obviously, you know, it was they
Very
didn't
different.
build to
Yeah.
it the whole time, but it was, you know,
Right.
so yeah, this is basically where they set that match up.
That's wild.
I mean, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe it because Bischoff was always someone who thought ahead. And Kevin Sullivan was someone who thought ahead in his booking style. So, I mean, this was which I mean, that's kind of a neat, you know, little added layer to that is that through all the goofiness of this shit, this is a match that they set up for 9 months in the making, and it turned out to be an absolutely epic disaster of a match. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
And an otherwise great show, by the way. But when we get to there, although I will never not get goosebumps for Piper coming out at the end. I always do.
I'm with you until like the segment begins to unfold. The entrance itself is one of the greatest moments in WCW history.
Yes.
But then, like as they start to, you know, I don't know,
First
man.
for B Piper.
Yeah, it's tough. I quickly wanna. We can do this, right? Toby, this is a good idea by Toby. I'll post notes like Comrade does.
Mm-hmm.
Comrade does a lot of that on his Patreon. You know, like fake content. Here it is, podcast notes you definitely need. You know, but I'll do it. It's fine if you want to see them. We can do that. This is also an incredible description of your Savage impression. Stan Lee doing a Macho Man impression. Okay, so this Clash main event. Let's transition to that with the big tag match, the All Star tag, Giant and Flair, Hogan Savage. Is it any good?
No, not really. Hogan has several bad matches this month. Like
Who'd have thought it?
he didn't bother me in 95 much, like in the
Yeah.
ring. But this shit, dude, he fucking had a match with Ming that sucked. Like he had a terrible squash with One Man Gang where Gang got one splash in, and Hogan just did his Hulk up and just squashed One Man Gang, the U.S. champion, squashed him.
Brother,
I mean, like
this
it
is
was
the thing. He is 6 months away from being like the guy again. You know,
Yeah.
Hogan is 6 months, and he's about to be the hottest thing again as a heel. And like, people don't realize they haven't seen it. You know, you're watching it now. You've seen it before. He could not feel further away from being red hot, could he? He is ice cold.
They fucking hate him too.
They hate him.
People boo the shit out of him,
Yeah.
especially in the Carolinas. The
Mhm.
Charleston show, my brother was at Charleston Nitro,
Wow.
January 8th, 96. My
Mhm.
dad and brother were at this one. Dylan always tells the story of, and you can see remnants of it. When Hogan comes out, fans are ripping the Hogan foam fingers and throwing it at him because they hate him so much. Because he's like, I think he's like working Flair and Arn and a tag
Yeah.
or something that night. And like, they can't stand him. They hate him. They hate him. Like those Southern fans, they hate him. out in the West Coast and stuff, like Hogan was getting pops at Vegas and stuff.
Mhm.
He's still over, but in the peak WCW cities, they're tired
Yeah.
of him, dude. Like he's getting booed out of the building. You've seen this shit.
He
The
sucks at
dude,
this point. He's just
he's
bad.
getting booed out of the building. Like,
Yeah.
and poor Savage, who I still think is good during this period, is
Yeah.
getting kind of swallowed up into that.
Which is a
You
shame
know,
because
yeah.
in hindsight, this is kind of like you got the
He
DDP
really did
feud.
have a good revival. Like he really put in the
Yeah.
effort. And it's
I
just,
wish there was better pieces around him here at this time, you know? It's a
Mhm.
shame. Kevin Green is there, right, for this? Isn't it Hogan and Savage? Am I right in saying that, Oracle?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Kevin Green is there for this
Yes.
one, right? Okay,
Yep.
so speaking of it, this is his first appearance, right? Is this where we do the angle with the Zodiacs involved and there's a whole fiasco? Or is
The
that
Zodiac
elsewhere?
slow turn is beginning, as it says in my notes,
Yes.
where he's like preventing the giant from doing further damage.
Is that at
And
the
it
Clash?
no, in the Clash, it's just Pillman and Zodiac run down and just get tossed out of the ring by Hogan and Kevin
Okay.
Green. It's
There
very
you
funny.
go. Right, let's forget Zodiac. We'll circle back to it. Let's
Yeah.
start with Kevin Green. This is his first appearance. He makes obviously some much more famous ones. Speak us through his role here with Hogan and Savage.
So Kevin Green, I've always liked Kevin Green. Like as a wrestler, may he rest in peace. I believe he passed away a year or two ago.
Mhm.
Great player. If those familiar with the NFL and his career, I think he was a pretty good linebackers coach in the last 10 years as well. But he was I liked him more than Rodman. Like
Yeah.
he and Rodman were the two guys that were always there every year. Like Rodman had it was Rodman, right? Like it was Rodzilla. Like he was fun, but like Rodman sucked, man. Like Kevin Green was not a bad wrestler. Like he was not that bad. Like I mean, he couldn't do a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
but like he was fun. He had charisma. He had a cool look with the long hair, and like he was like he had like the goofy '90s cool
Yeah.
look, but like he was just fun, man. Like he's really cheesy, kind of, but like I don't know. He's fun. Like it's hilarious when Pillman and Zodiac run into the ring. He like does like this weird dodge thing where they like slide under the ring, and like Hogan, like it's just it's very funny. But yeah, it's good stuff, man. Like I this particular night was not the greatest for him, but individually, I just think I've always been a Kevin Green fan, and I've told you I've always been a fan of the Slamboree '97 main event, which is
Yes. Yeah.
just absolutely awesome.
A classic WCW moment that's
Yes,
kind of lost because of all that's going on at that time,
yes,
right?
and Kevin Green's good in that match, by the way.
He is.
But I've always liked him. He I wish they'd given him a better opponent than uh, the giant Paul White not giving a shit in the summer '98, but
Yeah.
that's okay. That was his
Yeah.
last match, but that's fine.
Paul would, of course, redeem himself with athlete crossover matches 10 years later. He was a different man in 2008. He was,
I also kind of ironically and unironically enjoy the Steve McMichael match as well.
fair. I would probably
The
more
one
on
the
the
one the
ironic
one in
side.
summer '97, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
bash
that's
match,
fair.
yeah. And that
I
match
mentioned
actually
it.
has a really good build too, by the way. But
Well, we'll get there eventually, right?
yes,
Eventually.
I'm popping over Kevin Green. Sorry,
That's fine.
but
I mentioned I jumped the gun on the Zodiac, as many wrestling fans have through the years. As you said, Oracle, his slow babyface turn is underway, which will, I believe, conclude with one of the greatest ever explanations of a wrestler's heel turn ever. Please talk about the Zodiac's latest here. I believe that eventually it is explained that he was like a plant for Hulk Hogan, which was a fascinating thing. But this start here with this beginning of this slow babyface turn that will lead, of course, to a great character we'll remember very fondly. Go ahead, Oracle.
yeah, yes, the Bootyman. I'm just thinking of the Bootyman trying to bring Hogan a cake.
Oh,
Good God, we'll get to that. But So basically, the dungeon, like these crazy nitros that are always ending crazy with these Dungeon of Doom horsemen, Hogan Savage, Sting brawls, or whatever. And Zodiac keeps like every week he's like, no, he finally speaks for the first time, and Heenan's like, he's talking, trying to put it over. And he's always like trying to hold the giant back to, prevent doing more damage to Hogan and Savage. And, the commentary makes a point of pointing that out, right? And it hasn't really escalated any further than that yet, but we'll get there eventually. I think right around the time, right after Super Bowl, it really starts to. Maybe it is at Super Bowl. I can't remember. It's been a while. But...
Heats up is probably not the right phrase for it, right? Just sort of begins to occur.
Heats
begins
up.
to be.
There you go. That was probably a
generous, very generous.
Yeah, generous term for the old beefer.
Yeah, he has a hell of a run here, brother. Now, we mentioned Kevin Green, but this is Elizabeth's return, right? Miss Elizabeth is at the Clash, and she's an interesting piece of wrestling history, and this is an interesting run within that kind of story. But it's all about her being back, and she's going to have a weird kind of existence in WCW, unfortunately. But
yeah, she's just sort of.
She's kind of there.
Still quite attractive, but
I like seeing you piece together the way you were going to phrase that. That was good. Right. It was a compelling video. I like that.
Right.
He was like, well, how do I phrase this?
It's the public stream. But yeah, she just. It was weird. Like her character. And to her credit, she tried to change with the outfits and stuff and the times a little bit, right? But she fit more with the 80s and the cartoon stuff or whatever, just being that modest woman or whatever. She didn't have the personality to be like this, like cool, hot older woman. Do you know what I mean? She didn't pick it. She couldn't execute it as well as say Sherry was, as well as say Sherry could, even though. They always attacked Sherry for her looks, which was just ridiculous. But
it was kind of lightning in a bottle with Liz. Like it was the perfect scenario at the perfect time with the perfect act, and like I'm not, God bless her, but as a performer, there wasn't really much.
Right? Yeah, there wasn't a lot of charisma. She just never had a lot of charisma, right? Like
It's a shame. It's not a whole lot of great work coming up on.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Now, the
Hogan Savage build in the fall '96 had some very compelling segments, though, especially the one with her on the swing. That was good.
Oh yes, many great women's wrestlers have had great segments on a swing, or as you know.
Right.
But we'll get to Raw. We'll get to Raw 2021 shortly. Yeah. Anyway, Woman is here. Very different type of performer in this role. We're going to talk later about her farewell from ECW. Farewell probably isn't the best way to term that either, but farewell is what it is. Here she is talking about her arrival because she has a fun, she does some good TV. Very different skill set than Liz. So, Woman is here. Go ahead, Oracle.
Yeah, she's excellent. She's been great with the Sandman and Scorpio on ECW. Right now she's just she hasn't turned yet. Through January she hasn't. She's just still like Savage, one of the Savages, along with what was it? Linda Hogan was one of them, and then Deborah McMichael was another.
Yeah.
And there was another one that I didn't recognize. But it was Woman, Linda Hogan, Deborah McMichael, and then somebody else. Yeah, so those were kind of like the women that just walk out, right? Savage and Hogan, in a very just amusing, sort of bizarre, don't know why this is occurring type deal. But they make sure to point out that it's a woman and that she has a history with Flair. And there's a great moment the night where she returns, where Flair's trying to dance with her, and she slaps some Flair, and Flair takes a huge bump off of it.
Yes.
But yeah, she's terrific.
Signings are. I mean, we're going to get to Cotton more later, but it's just so interesting doing the project this way because you see people coming and going, right? It's interesting. We'll get to Cotton more signings later, but let's delve into some of the Horseman stuff. The Dungeon of Doom fiasco is beginning to unfold. There's some drama with On and Pillman, which we'll get into in a moment. But first, let's start with the Dungeon of Doom feud soon to be alliance thing, weird, kind of existence they have here is in the same promotion. They definitely shouldn't be together in. Go ahead.
Yeah, and people forget the Dungeon and Horseman end up feuding for an entire year.
Yeah.
Although they actually have lots of good matches on TV and stuff against each other. Of
It's just
course,
a
the
weird
centerpiece of that feud ends up being a very,
Well, yeah, it's tough.
very
We'll
tough
cover it,
feud.
bro.
And we'll cover it.
We have to, right? It is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, we have to. We're at least got to point out Dusty Rhodes' great commentary at the bash, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a year-long feud that has its ups and downs.
Yeah. That's very generous to say it fair. Okay, yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
that's a fair way of putting it. This is the final months of Yellow and Red Hope. A couple months ago, he began to wear all black, and it was a big thing. But
yeah,
he didn't know what was ahead.
Then he burned then he burned the Observer and became red and yellow again. So,
God, that ruled.
One of the greatest performance art moment, like just incredible performance art. That was just
yes, and you can catch up on that in the 2 episodes ago, right? November.
Yep,
So
November '95.
Go back and we do a pretty long segment on that. Okay, we got like this is a big one here. Talking to the Horseman, the best angle on slapping Pillman. Within that, Arn takes best promo. This is a famous segment, a classic. Like if someone said to you who was Arn Anderson, this would be a good one to like kind of encapsulate what his persona was. Speak to this. This is one that people love. Go ahead, Oracle.
So there's a couple of them. So this one's the January 15th one, the one that I always think about because the slap's like so vicious. But basically, this is the segment where they're supposed to have a tag match, Horseman and Dungeon of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
But they all come out. It's a great line where they all come in. Horsemen are all in suits, dressed up nice. Dungeon of Doom aren't because they're cartoon villains.
Yeah.
And Arn gets mad at Pillman. He goes, "I thought I told you this was a suit. I thought I told you to wear a suit," or some great line that. And then of course, they make a pact with the Dungeon. That we're better off together. There's no winners. There's only survivors. Is Arn great promo?
Mm-hmm.
It's only winners, no survivors. He and Sullivan shake hands. Sullivan goes, "I need to get that Pillman in line." And then Arn starts talking about respect, and Pillman goes with the mic and goes, "Did you hear that? You gotta respect us." Pillman's like being ridiculous, and Arn winds up, brother.
Yeah.
And fucking, it's like Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and all those guys in the home run race in '98 winds up and smacks the living shit out of Pillman. I mean, and the best part is Pillman's face just like completely changes, and he looks like he's about to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And like Arn just dresses him down in front of everybody, and like it's incredible. And then they have another great segment, a couple on the 29th of January, where Pillman has continued to be a problem because remember they on the 22nd he was jumping up and down trying to get the Giant to fight, and Arn was like, "No, tomorrow at the class." But Pillman was kept becoming a menace, and so Arn goes, it's only tough love now, and like takes off his belt like he's about to whip Pillman with his belt. And then of course the Horsemen jump Arn, and then Pillman is great. Pillman just flees the ring and hides by the apron. And then all of a sudden Sullivan just finds Pillman, and dude, there was like real hate or something behind that. Sullivan was trying to kill Pillman with the belt.
Well, it's interesting, right? I love this stuff because they finally kind of.
I'm pretty sure Pillman worked himself into a shoot with this gimmick. So
yeah, it seems that way. I love this stuff because they finally confront the contrast between like Pillman and the actual typical Horseman, right? Like they're starting to do that now. I know we've talked about a lot of it just with that stuff there, but the loose cannon character that we've kind of been talking about in recent months, it's really taking shape now, isn't it, Oracle? I mean, this loose cannon stuff it's kind of in full force. Speak to it a little bit here as we're in January '96.
Yeah, so the most famous moment that everybody still talk about today is at the Clash. Pillman's wrestling Eddie,
Mm-hmm.
and he kicks a drop kick out of the ring. And the funny thing is, Heenan and Schiavone are on commentary. Heenan's putting over Pillman. Heenan's such a pro. He still puts him over afterwards.
Yeah.
And because it's Heenan, and he's, one of the all-time greats. Pillman takes a powder on the floor, and then immediately starts trying to rip at Bobby Heenan's neck and at his jacket. Unedited on Peacock, by the way.
Wow, that rules.
Bobby goes, "The fuck are you doing?" And gets up and just walks off. I still think it's a work to this day. Part of me still thinks that thing was a work, but because the camera stayed on Heenan the whole time, that's my theory why.
That's fair.
But
yeah,
I think it probably was a work, but I think Pillman was more aggressive than Heenan was expecting him to be.
probably
That's my
so.
theory. But we could have a whole conversation about that. But I mean, the segment itself was just fun, and Heenan gets right back on commentary, and it was just like, and Schiavone was like, "You okay, Bobby?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." And he was like, "You still like the guy?" And Heenan goes, "Oh yeah, I still love the guy. I still love the way he works."
You gotta go with it, right? Like you can't just completely change up. He's such a fascinating character, Loose Cannon, because like so many people have tried to recreate it, and it's just. I think
my favorite is he convinced Bischoff to release him as a work, and then it became a shoot, right, or something like that.
Well, the story is, and I guess we could just come up with fuck it, bro. We're just talking here. So, is that many people in wrestling say that he told Eric to work the angle successfully that he was leaving. They needed to give him his actual release, but like. And now there's a lot of motivation for Bischoff to call that bullshit, as we know, because he does not want to sound like an idiot. But he just, he refuses this. What was really interesting was when Meltzer talked about on the Dark Side of the Ring, because Meltzer said Pillman always saw himself as a top guy in WCW, and he always felt like his ceiling was higher in WCW because they would generally push the smaller work rate guys more than WWF would. 1996, that started changing. Dave, he was pretty close to Trey. He said that. So I don't know. It sure feels like Eric got work though.
Yeah.
Got played, But that'll be coming up here shortly. So yeah, it's a what a fascinating.
We still got I Respect You, Booker Man coming up next month. So
yeah, and that's probably the only thing he does that's more famous than what we just talked about, right?
Except for when he shows up in March, it's not as famous, and he starts brawling wildly, viciously brawling with people in March.
Yes.
And Hogan, and he's no-selling Hogan's offense, and Hogan gets visibly mad.
He's supposed to be in the big, big cage match, right, against Hogan and Savage. He doesn't show up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just heard what sounded like gunshots. So that was
wow. Nice. I'm sure it's fun.
Yeah.
Fair. Bob coming around. Anyway, best match. Nitro, Benoit, we talked about it earlier. Look, guys, is what it is, right? But when it comes to best match, Benoit's probably going to come up a lot. There, of course, is famous there. Another term we've been used to describe him on the Late Night Grim, which I think we should keep off this program, Oracle. It's my
probably best. We could save that for the Patreon.
Yeah, that's my production note. Here it is with Alex Riot. Talk us through this one. I know we're both fans of Alex Riot. This time is actually a genuinely fun wrestler. But he
is. Alex Riot's a good worker. He's just great drop kick. Just I don't know. He's got he's got fun offense.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to put the match together well. Pretty well.
Yeah.
He's just a pretty good worker. He's a good solid mid card act. This match has been real physical, obviously.
Yeah.
A couple good little near falls. Just a really strong TV match.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of that he's like a go-to guy for that for a while. It changes as their roster changes, right? Because they get more, he's an interesting career. We've talked about him before. At one point, Flair wanted to push him as the next kind of rising babyface star. And then as Flair lost power, things changed for Alex Riot. But it's just an interesting career to go back and look at. Returning to the Clash, we have the wedding segment. right? We have Colonel Barton Sherry, which is it's a piece of business. Oracle, talk us through it.
Let me tell you something. There are many times where you can tell, but boy, oh boy, is Gene Okerlund and all. He was the best ever to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Because this dude carries the whole thing. He's hilarious throughout, just hysterical. Like, and Parker or Sherry, you know, they're great characters, so they work hard and do their deal.
Yeah.
There's a part where they're all late to the wedding, and they're at this drive-in chapel. You're supposed to go to this chapel with a drive-in. And Colonel Parker's gambled all of his money away, and he comes up and he asks Bobby Heenan for $50, and Heenan, or not Heenan, but Okerlund $50, and Okerlund's like, you know, Mean Gene is just.
He's so smooth, man. He's so smooth.
He just thinks on his feet.
He could have done actual late night TV. Like he's.
Oh my God, yes.
Like back then too. Like nowadays, you know. But like that guy is just a great television personality.
He's just the limo driver keeps honking the horn, and you know, I don't know why I keep thinking that because Bobby's still in my head for the Pillman angle. But Okerlund gets mad and you know, cut it out with that horn. You know, Gene's just being hilarious the whole time.
You know what's fascinating about Gene too? We talk about these great wrestlers, and if we think hard enough, we can think of a comparison. He's kind of one of one, isn't he? I mean, honestly, who could you possibly compare Gene Okerlund in terms of the range he had, the way he would fill such a unique role? Like he's
the best to ever do it, and Tope's right. Like Renee's awesome. I think she's the second best to ever do it. My opinion. Like Renee's outstanding, but Renee's different. Her personality's different.
Yeah,
and Okerlund was very much a mentor for her because she did all those classic segments with Gene on the network or whatever the heck. There was like a Canadian show or whatever,
yeah.
or some. It was like In the Vault or something.
They definitely worked together. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And Renee's outstanding. She's great. I'm not so sure she could do. She's confident enough to like. She was never really given the situation to do, or the opportunity to do some of the things Gene did in terms of like those types of segments. But Gene's the best. He just. Someone posted a great, and I think it was like WCW Cuts or whatever, you know, that channel. Where like Alex Wright was struggling through his promo leading up to Starrcade 95, one of the C shows, and Gene just carries him through the whole thing. He was just.
There are certain parts of his game that Renee could replicate, and I think we both love Renee. I don't think Renee could do the equivalent of what Gene does at Starrcade 93, in which he gives that whole thing a level of gravity that is like too good for
the limo with Flair and stuff.
Yeah, like that's Cassell with Ali, right? That's like that feels like it's just above wrestling. Like the way he treats that whole thing.
Gene is so good. Like Gene, like he's so good even like an Arn's retirement segment, right?
Right.
Kind of in the background, just like he's just so good. Like sometimes Gene will like, and there were times where he could be a problem where you're like, all right, Gene, you don't have to add every little. But there were times where he was just in this wedding. He was right at home with this shit. You know, 10 years in WWF helped him. And I love the part where Dick Slater takes his hat off. He's like all sad, and he calls him Bunkhouse Bunk. He goes Buck with a tear. No. He goes Buck with a tear in his eye. And Gene realizes he messed up. He goes, oh, I mean Buck with a tear in his eye. He looks.
I think we kind of missed talking about comparisons. Like, when Shivani plays the role of interviewer on Dynamite, there is a lot of Gene, I feel, in the like his role.
Right.
Like I said to you before we came on here, and I talked for a couple minutes about Dynamite, and I said, man, that Regal segment really felt like a Nitro segment.
It really did.
And he was Gene in that example, right? I mean, it sounds dumb because Tony was there too, but he wasn't in that particular role. But
right,
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, God bless him, Mean Gene, legend. Let's stick at the Clash here as we nearly wrap up WCW.
Yeah, but real quick,
go ahead.
that Sherry Medusa brawl was violent.
Yeah, they
Medusa
kicked the
was
shit out of each
beating
other.
the shit.
Yeah.
And then Sherry gets like knocked out on Nitro almost with a German.
Oh,
Remember
that's
that? Oh,
brutal.
it was awful.
Yeah.
Um,
She's badass though, man. She's
yeah,
badass.
Sherry and Medusa both are badasses.
Absolutely.
Straight up.
Yep. Psychosis and Conan, rest of the clash. One of those moments you can kind of circle in the timeline and say, that shift that we talk about in terms of the talent acquisitions, right? It's a big one here with these two guys. We've talked about Psychosis from the ECW front. I think we touched on Conan. I think we talked about him doing some stuff, right? Speak to their match, speak to them being here, so on and so forth.
The match was whatever. Conan's still basically playing like his Triple H or his Triple A babyface character.
Rule. Imagine him doing Triple H.
his Triple A babyface character.
Yeah.
But just in WCW. We don't see the Conan that we know until really in the summer '97 when he feuded Ray, right? Like,
yeah.
Because even when he's in the Dungeon of Doom, I mean, he's slowly sort of morphs into what we know him as, but like it's not really the Conan that we're familiar with. Psychosis just has a one-off for now, and then comes back 6 months later at the Bash and sticks around and is either really awesome some weeks and absolutely putrid others. So
you get what you get, I suppose, right?
Yeah. He's actually really good more often than not, but sometimes Psych had a had a botchamania type evening.
Yeah, it happens.
Hit or miss.
Public Enemy have been a constant topic here with ECW. Here they are in WCW, kicking off a fascinating couple of years for these two. A hell of a time. Talk us through their arrival here in WCW, brother.
They were not the best fit in WCW, but I actually don't hate their matches. I've never hated their matches.
Right.
And the Nasty Boys match at the Clash is actually kind of fun because it just totally goes out of hand. And Tony and Bobby are just like, this is out of hand. And it's like, the best part is the ref throws the match out and Bobby goes, yep, got to do it. The way he does it, the way he says it, yep, no choice. And they're just like literally brawling around and at one point Jerry Sags is like literally there's a great spot where Jerry Sags chases down like Rocco Rock or it was either it might have been it might have been Johnny Grunge. He chases him down the aisle with a half broken table and splits it over his head. But it's the crowd possible. I mean, it was fun for what it was. The match, I mean, it was just fun. I really don't mind them. Like, I always like it when they'd have like their street fight matches on Nitro. And we'll get to that. And they would just like break tables and do crazy shit with the Nasty Boys or whoever. That was always fun to me. Like, I never had a problem with that. Like, because I think it added to the variety of Nitro, even though their act didn't necessarily fit entirely with WCW.
Well, I think part of the kind of conversation with them there and then what happens next is like it's different to their role in ECW, right? Where they are. I mean, you've talked about it, they were a huge deal.
Yeah, they were a top act there.
Yeah, and here it's just like kind of they're like a plunder team that kind of floats around.
You know who they were like? They were WCW's version because WCW was very much a variety show 96, 98. Yeah. They were WCW's version of say The Godfather 98, 99. Where Godfather come out was hot with the crowd and come out with his quoting. Well, let's be honest, what they called them, hoes. Godfather come out, pop the crowd. The matches didn't. They have a 3 or 4 minute match, whatever. Like that. I mean, that was basically Public Enemy, right? Except for they would just have their hardcore match with tables.
Like, you've intrigued me here. I'm going to derail this program once again because I'm intrigued by the mention of the Godfather. He portrayed like 18 characters on TV. Genuinely, because you always pop me with these answers because you're more aware of like obscure TV matches than I am. How many, like, if I said to you put together a best of, including all of his personas, how many matches do you reckon you could confidently put together for the Godfather, Karma, the whole guy? Go ahead.
Oh, fuck.
Is it like 5?
There were some good right to censor tags.
Okay. So with Bull Buchanan? With who? Who's his partner? Bull?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Bull. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Oh God, maybe 10 or 15. Because there might be some hidden C-show matches that aren't that bad.
Okay, that'll be a Patreon project coming soon,
Right, there
guys.
we go.
Guys, like at first though, because let's be honest, he looked fucking awesome, right? So it's just like,
Yeah.
well, you got to find something for him.
Yep.
It's a lost art in this business, brother. We need more of that, you know. Anyway, that's WCW. Let's wrap it up by this. I think it's an interesting way of framing. I said it earlier. First month of Nitro without a pay-per-view, an actual, traditional pay-per-view ahead. Obviously, they're building the Clash, but like you said, last month was a big one for them finding who they're going to be as a product, their identity.
Mm-hmm.
That was a clean sweep. This one wasn't, but they won, two of the weeks here. More of the same in that trend, or
I
some
think
kind
so.
of
Yeah.
Okay.
Hogan is starting to get on my nerves now. Like because it's we don't have enough of the like ironically bad like bad but ironically funny segments as much.
Yeah.
Like the Savage one at Caesar's Palace is funny, but like he's just having bad matches and is just now annoying. So like it's kind
When
of
was his contract up?
oh God, I don't know.
They're trying chat.
Well,
If you know,
he re-signed in '98. Remember, or at least the
yes,
Nitro book, he did a re-sign in '98.
yes, which is
As
when
much
they
as
like met in public,
mm-hmm.
which is hilarious. The reason I ask is because I'm always fascinated. Chat, if you know, please. But I'm always fascinated by like the timeline if he doesn't do the heel turn. Like, there's no way you could re-sign him, right? He's like an anchor, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just interesting to kind of kick around. Anyway, by the way, folks, if you're enjoying this, give us one of those thumbs up gimmicks. If you're not, simply ignore what I just said. ECW, January 1996. They also won 2 weeks. They are the big event this month is House Party 96. Let's start with the best match of the month for them, which was hosted here at the House Party event. Scorpio, Too Cold Scorpio. I almost said Scorpio Sky. That would have been something. He won a different type of TV title here recently, right? We'll get into that on another show. Too Cold Scorpio win TV title. Mikey Whitred, this was the best match of the month. Talk us through it, Oracle.
Yeah, so this is the rematch from the week before that actually was the match of the month from December, if you remember.
I believe so, yes.
So this is a little bit better, kind of much of the same. It goes a little bit longer, I think. Scorpio just kind of beats up a Mikey, refuses to pin him. Mikey makes a big comeback. Looks like Mikey's about to win. Difference is, after Cactus had helped Mikey win, remember, because Mikey won the TV title the week before and the tag belts, and Cactus became his partner.
Yes.
Cactus goes up to Raven with Mikey and is like, hey, he can join the Raven's Nest or whatever, and Raven doesn't want because he doesn't like Mikey. He pushes Cactus and says, do what I tell you, Cactus, or whatever, in typical Scott Levy voice. And then and so like basically Raven doesn't want Mikey involved with his stuff, so there's ref bump because ECW, you gotta have the ref bumps. And I'll probably mention that every show. Raven comes out and gives the even flow DDT to Mikey. Scorpio ends up winning back the title. I think he hits like his what was it when he drops the dime, the moonsault leg drop, top rope moonsault leg drop,
which he would absolutely murder people with sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when it's like whole ass with like crushes on his face.
There's one with Benoit, right? Remember the famous Benoit one where he just like, oh my god, he's getting to play. He's also the best promo segment. Is the aforementioned deal with him and Sandman kicking out Woman. You kind of referenced this last time, right? Talk us through this deal.
They do a really good job of like pushing out of ECW or like slowly getting her out. So like basically, Woman gets blamed for her poor management as she's busy in WCW managing Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. Her poor management has cost Sandman the world title because he loses to Raven on this show, and we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will.
And she's refused to light his cigarettes now, and she's like refusing to like gesture to the crowd and stuff in the entrances, and and she's being blamed for the tag title loss with Mike. She's being blamed for all this poor management. So after Sandman loses the title, Sandman's all mad, and she's like, "It's okay, Sandman, you can come with me to WCW." And Sandman's like, "No, I'm not coming with you." And Sandman says some things that will not be repeated. And Too Cold Scorpio comes out. And and Sandman like rips his shirt off and says, "You gonna join with her?" And Scorpio said, "Well, I ain't never gonna turn down a woman." That's not the term that he uses, but I would say that. And Scorpio's playing along with the idea that he's gonna join with a woman, and then at the very end he goes, he and Sandman get in each other's face, and it's like it's either you or me, or you and her, and sometimes they don't say her. And, this is 1996, folks. Things are better today. And finally, Scorpio at the last second goes, "I'm going with you," and hugs Sandman. And woman's all upset, and she's about to leave to the front. Scorpio goes, "Oh no, you don't get to leave through the front like Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero did, honey. He goes, "Honey, you gotta leave through the back. And when you leave, don't let the door hit you, where the good Lord split you." and then he goes and carries her off to the back. It's a great send off for woman. The crowd, of course, went crazy, and Scorpio comes back out after carrying her out and hugs Sandman, and they celebrate and drink beers. And
see, that sounds pretty cool. But do you not think it'd be a better way to write off a manager to have them just say the word family once and get fired in a 30-second pre-tape that's then smash cut away from while Jim Ross says, "What happened?"
I totally forgot about. I forgot that even happened, and they just did it. And I'm like, wait a minute, they just did that. He's been with them for a year.
I know, it was fucking incredible. Jim Ross said, "What was that?" I'm sorry, folks. 1996. You mentioned it, Raven winning the world title. You also popped me tremendously with the typical Scott Levy voice comment, which was tremendous. Raven, world champ. Talk us through it, Oracle.
Yeah, so he's finally won the world title. Lots of interference and stuff. Tom Driver got involved. Sandman missed a big leg drop. Even for a DDT on the chair. Raven wins world title. And of course, we'll get to it, but this is kind of a way for him to get his heat back after Beulah's babyface turn.
Right.
Yes. And Kimona Wanalea is now his
Mm-hmm.
manager.
Yeah, talk a little bit while we're on this subject about her coming in. Is anything else to add on that front?
I mean, she has yet to strip in the ECW arena.
Okay. So stay tuned.
I wonder if that's edited on the network or Peacock.
Well, you'll find out here pretty shortly, I'm sure. You mentioned the viewer angle. You said it.
I always love Jericho's story of Terry Gordy in the back. You ever see the ECW documentary in WWE? Terry Gordy's like, "I ain't ever seen anything like that where I'm from."
God bless. You mentioned that the babyface turning with Beulah, and like this is like I can't obviously I know this angle. I think most people know this angle, but like reading this in the notes alongside all the other things is so incredible. Like Beulah reveals she's pregnant with Tommy's baby, therefore turning babyface. Like the idea of this all being in like a wrestling context is incredible. But it's a very famous angle. It was your best angle of the month for ECW. Talk us through this. It's a very famous moment, Oracle. Because go ahead.
So like, it's this deal where, and again, it is uncomfortable. Like it's a bit of an uncomfortable segment, but they pull it off really well. So they're coming out, and like Stevie Richards talking about how he's like a ladies' man now, and like Beulah's out with him, and he's like, and Beulah and I had some good times over the holidays or some horse shit. And he's like, it's ever since I think it was like, remember he kisses Missy Hyatt, right?
Right.
And on the Holiday Hell show, and he's like, "So Beulah, you can kiss me now." And Beulah's like, "I don't want to be touched." And of course, Stevie's, not
Mm.
following along with that. And she gets on bench. She goes, "I'm pregnant." It's very well acted, by the way. Like it's pretty
It's
believable.
actually like genuinely good drama. If you're gonna
It
do it
really is.
right.
It
It
really
is.
is. Like it really is good drama. And Beulah plays it great. She's great in this. Like, Stevie's like, "What?" And then Raven comes out and goes, "Pregnant? I thought she's 2 pills or some horse shit." And she goes, she said, "Well," she was like, "Why do you care? It's not yours." And
Yeah.
then Raven starts beating the shit out of Stevie because he thinks
Kicks
it's
the
his.
shit out of him. It rules.
And then Beulah goes, "No, stop." She goes, "Stop. It's not his either." And there's this great moment where they let it pause right after she says that, and they're
Hmm.
all and the whole crowd's buzzing, and they're trying to figure it out. And there's the idiots like hat guy in the front row, like it's mine, and, and then, and then all of a sudden she goes, "It's Tommy's," and of course Raven, it's 1996, goes after Beulah,
Yeah.
and it's insane. Dreamer comes out, huge pop, like doing his Dreamer like hockey fight punches, which are hilarious every time. And then he beats him up. Of course, Stevie and Meanie are out there. And Beulah gets a fucking frying pan and whacks the shit out of Stevie and Meanie with a frying pan. And then Dreamer beats the shit out of Raven, and like someone gives him a sign, and Joey Styles thinks it's just a regular sign, but it's a stop sign with a sign wrapped in it,
Yeah.
or like wrapped around it. And he pile drives him, DDT as a stop sign. Then he gets like a blueberry pie and does the Dreamer like
Hmm.
eating the pie, which is there might be some connotations there, but to be careful with my wording, um, or my expressions, um, but Dreamer pile drives him on the pie, which is actually just hilarious because it's so stupid, but it also rules at the same time. He hugs Beulah. Beulah's a baby face now.
Yeah.
Um, and crowd pops huge. Of course, the episode ends with he and Beulah in the hotel room. Beulah going, "Tommy, I want to feel your pain." Read between the lines there. Uh, but
So I hadn't seen. I think everyone knows this segment. I'd seen but I only saw it properly when I told you I was doing the TNN stuff for ECW years later. And at one point on those, Paulie like narrates like a 10-minute recap of the Raven Dreamer saga to that point, and they showed like 30 seconds of this segment. I was like, I'm watching this whole thing. So the part where she says it's not yours, and he just immediately kicks the shit out of Stevie is like genuine. It's it's insane because it's like, is this? It feels like actual TV for a second rather than wrestling TV that we're used to, which can be good and bad in different contexts. Here, I think it's actually kind of good. It kind of rules,
mhm.
but it's just an interesting case study of like what you can do with wrestling. This is like the weirdest form of entertainment ever,
Tell
isn't
you
it?
what, man, those ECW guys were tough as hell
Yeah.
because we'll talk about Francine here in a little bit.
Oh God, yeah. Yes.
I mean, like,
Yes. In fact, while you're on this topic, there is two straight notes in which is like the Eliminators murder Paul Francine, and then like Stevie super kicks her. Speak to this a little bit, because when I saw them one after the other, I was like, "Good lord."
so like this is kind of furthering. So they're setting up Francine and the Pitbulls versus Stevie Richards and the Eliminators in a
Mhm.
6-man dog collar match, or basically an intergender dog collar match. Um, Stevie rules because he didn't care. He just let women beat the shit out of him. Um, but like, and so basically, I, I think it was a segment where Taz is like, yeah, it was 911 Rey Mysterio versus the Eliminators,
Mhm.
and like, 911 and Ray win when they do like the chicken fight spot. Ray gets up on 911's shoulders and like
Mhm.
Saturn's on like Kronos's, and then they just sort of just do like a huge Frankenstein. And from that point, it's very funny. The setup is, but it rules at the same time. 911 and Ray win. But there's a huge Heyman book mess at the end, and Francine and the Pitbulls eventually get involved, and Francine eats like a horrific total elimination, and then of course she's in a neck brace now, and a few weeks later, the last episode of the month, Stevie Richards. Remember, Francine debuted as Stevie Richards' ex-girlfriend, and like they broke up or whatever, and involving the Tommy Dreamer angle, or the Tommy Dreamer Raven feud, and Stevie's trying to get Francine back, so he's doing saying all the right things, and there's obviously lots of sexual connotations and whatnot in it, and Stevie does the great thing he goes, "You aren't pregnant, are you?" And Francine goes, "Why would you say something like that?" She gets all mad at him. and so Stevie, of course, just gets mad because he realizes he's messed up, so he calls her things. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And he gets like slapped for it, and then he like causes a whole brawl with the Eliminators. It's supposed to be Eliminators versus Gangsters, and then it ends up being like, or not the Pitbulls versus the Gangsters, and the Eliminators and Stevie and Meanie and all these other people beat up and bloody the Pitbulls. Pitbulls are bleeding buckets and all this. Francine's getting, and then Taz and 911 and Dreamer and all these people fucking get involved, and Todd Gordon's and Phil Alfonso are fighting all throughout. It's a totally crazy Heyman segment. And this is the last episode of ECW of the month, and the 30th, and in the end of the segment, Francine ends up eating a vicious super kick from Stevie Richards. So, for all the things you can say about the ECW women, you can absolutely say they're tough, because these gals went out there and got creamed and destroyed by these guys with these, because Heyman is Heyman and he wanted to book this shit, but they were tough for it, and Beulah at least got to beat the shit out of some guys sometimes,
right?
Like the Alfonso feud and stuff. But I mean, not really something we should have in wrestling anymore. But credit to them for at least,
especially not in this particular context, right? There's a lot of one of it.
Right.
You mentioned Taz 911. Their feud is wrong. I think we kicked this off last month, right? I remember us talking about this. Update us on what they're up to, Taz and 911.
Yeah, so they're just basically like having these face-offs and like almost fighting. At one point, Taz tries to like bully choke 911 for like 5 minutes. 911 just gets up and no sells it. It's hilarious. And at one point, like 911's almost about to choke slam Taz, and like people are like pulling 911 off, so he can't quite get Taz up for the choke slam. I don't even think they ever have a match. They just like tease it for like 2 months.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, 911 was god awful. Poor guy. Yeah. He ends up showing up in WCW's Tombstone and works like C shows, and he's just terrible. Heyman never wanted him to wrestle, because the story, 911 was begging to wrestle, and Heyman was like, "Sure, pal."
Well, you know what was best for him, unfortunately, right? I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. Shane Douglas is back after we've covered some of his incredible stint in the World Wrestling Federation. He is back home here in ECW. How is Shane getting on, Oracle?
Well, Shane comes back, debuts after a Bubba Ray Dudley Jimmy Del Rey match. Comes out and like the Dean Douglas gear and cuts a promo. Then the funniest part is at the end of the episode, it's like the second episode of the month. They pan to Shane at the end of the episode. Is, the franchise is back in ECW. It's ridiculous. Like,
I mean, that was pretty good. That's about what it sounded like. Yeah.
Shane, he's really good in '96, but boy, let me tell you, when he starts really going full Shane Douglas in '97, '98. Like a lot of people, like Shane Douglas, like from the time he basically like the end of the Pitbull feud in late '96, '97 till he leaves in early '99. He's to me what a lot of people thought of Taz, which was like fake tough guy or whatever. Like
Yeah.
Shane Douglas is just like he's basically Triple H before Triple H, as our friend
Yes.
Perry and Alex says.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what he is.
God
But with
bless
like
Contrary and
unedited
Alex.
promos, you know. And I won't lie, some of it kind of pops me because it's just Shane just like going off and saying stupid, like just saying whatever. Just
Right.
it's kind of amusing, but you can almost never take him seriously because it's
I
just like
kind of, I need to see more of this stuff because, like, franchise Shane, everything I've seen of it, I've liked very little of it. So I
yeah,
need to watch more of like before he becomes a Falker. Because the worst part is like his most extended run that I've watched week to week, and you'll immediately know why I'm not a big fan when I say this. Is like 2000 WCW, where he is like washed ain't even the word for how bad that guy is at that
Flair
point. Like
feud, and then like Tori Wilson as his valet and
he's
stuff.
awful, right? In every
Yeah,
way, he's bad. So I need to see more of this stuff because every time I'll stop him for like one show, and it's just I need to see kind of obviously Dean, that doesn't help either.
it's weird. Like he was like the top heel in the promotion in a lot of ways, and there's something about him, even though I find him annoying and like just bad, but like there's still something about him that works in ECW, right? Like
Right.
coming out to like Perfect Strangers and shit, and
Hmm.
like Francine with him, and like it's like there's a great early '98, maybe House Party '98, where he comes out with like triple threat and like a 6-man tag, and the heat is through the roof, and Perfect Strangers is blaring and it rules.
There's,
But
I
he's just
mean, there's an art form to being a heel, and I think in this setting, he's unlocked as to what his maximum can be in that regard. Right? It's just
mhm,
in other settings, it's less, it's
right,
less apparent,
right,
unfortunately.
right.
Um,
What?
uh,
Not a big fan of the Revolution?
oh God, no. A guy that was able to kind of adjust to different settings was Cactus Jack, Mick Foley. He's wrapping up a range of feuds here, Oracle. Talk us
Mhm.
through them. A lot going on here for Cactus. This is about to be a big year for him, right? So
So
talk us through it.
Mick was so smart because I feel like this was partly him just going, I want to wrap these feuds up because I know I'm leaving the territory.
Yep.
He's got the Mikey tag team, but he knows he wants to, eventually help get Mikey over before he leaves. So he's got that going on. Shane Douglas is back, and when Douglas left for WWF, he and Cactus were in a feud,
Mm-hmm.
teaming in a feud or whatever. So now he and Shane Douglas have a score to settle because Douglas is actually a babyface
Right.
coming back. And then, of course, he's still in the feud with Dreamer.
Yeah.
So he's got all three of these feuds going on. And, like, he's able to balance it all out. And what was it that he said? He cuts a hilarious promo at the on the January 30th episode. It's just clip, but Mick cuts this hilarious promo where he's like something about, and you'll all respect me as much as you have here when I'm working a wrist lock on King Mabel. And the way Mick says it is just hilarious. He just, the way he's so good at this time because he just knows how to troll the crowd so well.
Yeah.
He's just
Thing is, though, like seriously, it is insane. In his wildest dreams, he couldn't have imagined he would make as much money as he's about to make. Right? Like it's
no.
nuts to think about. I mean, when does he debut? Like the TV after Mania?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
his vignette's already started, and we'll get to that. His
Of
first
course, we'll
vignette
talk
was
about
on
it.
the
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
his first vignette was on, I think it was on the C shows even before the one on Raw.
So they do months of those, right?
Yeah, they did like 3 or 4 months of the vignettes. That's a WWF staple. Do like 4, like I remember Razor Ramon had like 7 months of vignettes in '92 before he actually debuted.
It rules that like we're now at a point where vignettes have kind of become like they're only used as like a parody and a dunk. Like you know how weird that is. Like
Mhm.
the Veer stuff is like a bit.
Yeah.
Does anyone else even get vignettes anymore?
No.
AEW has never done a vignette.
No. I love vignettes.
I do too.
Yeah.
Seems like the industry doesn't anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Public Enemy, we mentioned they're arriving. They're out of the territory here. But how do they conclude their run in ECW?
They have a few, finished off a few of the gangsters. Gangsters end up putting them over. They have a big celebration, great video to close them out. Everybody comes in the ring to dance one last time or whatever. Just fun little send off for them. Like I said the last show, Heyman was always great with send offs. Whether it was woman as a heel getting sent off, or later in March when we get to March, Mick's send off is one of the all time great. Foley's send off from ECW is one of the all time great send offs. I don't know if you've ever seen it where he's dancing and singing New York, New York.
Oh yes, yes, of course.
It's incredible. Of course, that's probably edited. I may have to look that up on the YouTube, but
I'd forgotten the Wardlow vignettes. Good call, guys. Good call.
There you go. And the Lance Archer had some too.
Oh yeah, but they did it like, remember they did that reversed where like he just showed up with Jake and they're like, that's Lance Archer, and then they did the vignettes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want to have some sort of surprise pop. It's fine. Sabu is not, some of these guys are leaving. Sabu is not. He's becoming the promotion's workhorse. Talk us through Sabu's kind of evolution in the promotion. When we started this process, he was in WCW for that very short. You can see us cover that as brief as it was. Here he is becoming the promotion's workhorse. Oracle, talk us through it.
Yeah, he's just kind of having like competitive matches with everybody, like Stevie Richards, Hack Myers. Eventually he'll get into a TV title feud with Too Cold Scorpio, and they have a great match at CyberSlam. We'll cover that here in a few weeks when we get to that in February '96. He's just Sabu has his style, right? But like, and he's just now starting his RVD feud because they have like the famous matches in '96 or whatever. And of course, we'll I'm sure we're about to talk about RVD. So
yes,
but he's Sabu's just kind of working his Sabu matches, but Heyman sort of made him like the workhorse, which both kind of rules and is both kind of like weird at the same time because it's Sabu and he's like doing Arabian Facebusters, and, like running the ropes and like.
If a booker is good at what he does, which obviously Paulie is, the workhorse thing can be a gimmick and a character trait, which is like a completely lost thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Because now everyone is so desperate they want to have that term. So it's like you're never going to be able to, it's just
right. Outwork everyone.
That aged incredibly, by the way. Fucker doesn't wrestle.
Well, I'm kind of glad because I don't want to. If we can get a couple more years out of him, I would just be happy.
I agree. We need more matches. We need more matches.
I agree.
He's the man, though. Okay, you mentioned RVD. He is here, and this is obviously a big one for ECW. We talk a lot about guys leaving because there's so much money out there from the big two. But here's a guy that's going to be, he's going to be integral moving forward until the end. And even in the revival, which we will not cover on this series, but maybe in another one day. RVD, bro, talk us through his early days here in ECW.
They didn't like him in his first match.
Wow.
Because he wrestled Axel and the karate shit, everybody was like, oh, fuck karate, and like, because he was doing, like, but he kind of got over it within the match when he was doing like a split leg of moonsault and RVD spots, and ECW crowd's gonna pop for that. It took a little while for him to get super over. The Sabu feud really gets him over in '96.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Sabu tag team, and they have an incredible feud with the Eliminators. Have you ever seen their TLC matches with the Eliminators? They're must see. It's like, we'll get to it, but I'm gonna tell you what, dude. Those TLC matches with the Eliminators are some of the most insane matches you will ever see. Think about the time frame. That's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And the stuff they were doing, literally every spot is just psychotic. Like, it's
what time? So what month for those matches?
November '96 is the first.
Okay.
Big match. Then they have like a back-to-back matches of CyberSlam '97 because it was a two-show weekend.
Okay.
And they have like a 3 or 4 month feud.
Okay, so it's not too far ahead, but we've got a little while, right? Okay, I'll try and We'll keep a note of that.
Like, okay, they're just insane. Like, those matches are nuts.
Okay, so How would you say ECW kicked off 1996? A lot of change, right? There's a lot of moving pieces, but how would
Yeah,
you say it kicked
yeah.
off?
They kicked it off pretty well. Like CyberSlam is going to be a big show to talk about. Of course, we'll have 2 ECW events in February: Big Ass Extreme Bash, um, which is their second show in the Lost Battalion Hall in Queens. That's on February 3rd. That's my first show to watch the entire month of February before anything. There's a chance I might try and put that on tonight. We'll see. But CyberSlam's on the 17th, same weekend as In Your House. So like, there's feuds that are going to be kind of starting in this. I think the early years of 96, early months of 96 are more about closing and ending things.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get through March, the big angles and stories and arcs and stuff like that will kind of unfold through the year. 96 is often looked at as the best year in the history of ECW, either 95 or 96.
Yeah, I've from the outside looking in, it's always been when people talk about doing a watch project like that. 96 is the year they always circle, so it'll be interesting. Okay, the World Wrestling Federation closing us out as they often do. January is historically, or in theory at least, a big month for them. As we've seen recently, you can test that theory. The Royal Rumble. I mean, everyone, like, if you love wrestling, you love the Royal Rumble, right? Sports and all, you love the thing. Let's start at the top. The namesake Royal Rumble match. Shawn Michaels is back. We've covered his. We both liked it, right? The kind of angle they did with him and his return to the ring. He's back. He wins the Rumble. Let's talk about the Rumble match, and then the winner, Shawn Michaels. Let's start right at the top. Oracle, go ahead.
Well, let's be clear, okay?
Okay.
Other than maybe Great Mike North in October, which was a bad show, this show fucking sucked from top to bottom. This show sucked. It was boring. It sucked. Have you ever seen this show?
I don't think
The
so.
whole thing?
No.
Dude, it sucks.
No.
Have you seen Brett Taker? We'll talk about
Yes.
that. That sucks.
Well, there's Taker's just a really interesting guy in that regard. Really
They go like 30 minutes and it's just boring. This show sucked, man. Like, the Rumble match itself was not very good, but it did have like the most random assortment of people ever. Like the KO Omori, Doug Gilbert, God, who else is in this? Bob Backlund, Jerry Lawler. Of course, Vader debuts in it. Vader rules in it. He and Savio Vega have incredible exchanges throughout. Their whole like they just like beat the tar out of each other the whole time, and it rules. Of course, Vader has this big moment where he gets eliminated, and as Contrarian Alex mentioned on the Grenathon a few weeks ago, how Shawn just nonchalantly dumped T and Yokozuna out. Then Vader comes in.
By the way, it's worth noting. I know I've said this on here, but if you enjoyed, this is a hilarious sentence one about to say. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours of our 12-hour stream, in which our pal Alex joined us, he is penciled in to be on the Grin Grappler program. So,
my God, really?
Look forward to, yes, because I thought it would be good to balance out the fact that Shoot doesn't want to talk about Samoa Joe with someone that does.
Right.
So and he was there for one of the matches. He was there for the Aries match. So he'll be back because he was fucking incredible.
Those matches? Have we listed those matches?
Yes, I can. I'll say them now just because I tweeted.
How much time do I have to watch them?
Like 2 weeks. So we have Act 1 is like peak Joe. So we have the Necro match, the Kenta Kobashi match. I thought they were the most iconic ones. Then we have Act 2, which is the dark days of him being like just a loser in TNA. Our 2 matches are in a 2-month span. Austin Aries from Slammiversary, which Alex was there for, where he kind of rolls back the years. And there is a Kurt Angle match from 2012 that's got like mixed reviews. That's just interesting. So I put that one there because I want to get the full span. At that time, he kind of sucks.
Right.
And then we've got the WWE stuff. The 2 WWE matches are Finn from London, because I was there, and AJ from Melbourne. Remember the Super Showdown match? Where they worked.
Yeah.
That's the 6 matches. So, we're going to be reviewing those in like a couple end of the month. So, a little programming note. But Alex is going to be, I think that's going to be a fun ride. I feel that'll be fun.
Yes.
But yes, he throws up Vader and Yoko, which is peak Sean. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you enjoyed this Rumble much, pal.
It wasn't, man. It wasn't good. Like, it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
Sean eliminates Diesel at the end. Diesel shakes his hand or whatever. Sean does a celebration, moons the crowd. Everybody loves it. Sean's stripping thing was always
It's fucking weird, man.
and I just don't understand it. It's not even like it just it didn't make sense.
It's just weird. Like, it's all so strange.
Right.
I don't get it. I just do not get it.
Bizarre.
Yeah, so let's the Rumble, not so good. Let's go back to the start of the month. For something that was good. Best match for WWF here in January 96. The Raw Vault, which always put the name always is like is that the best they could do? I mean, I get it. But like, explain the concept here, and then the fact that you obviously very much liked it was the match of the month. Go ahead.
Well, it's New Year's Day, so in the States, New Year's Day is like always got like big bowl games, college bowl games on. So they just turned it into a whole like football analogy, and it was hilarious. And the match was actually good. Smoking Guns ended up winning. I think it's like Smoking Guns versus Sid and Kid versus Savio and Razor versus who's the fourth team? Owen and Yoko. Yeah, it's just super fun. Like the match goes. It's an elimination style match. They go like 30 minutes. It's super fun. Not a lot of great in ring in WWF. Yeah. Sean and Yoko had a good match on the January 29th Raw. But
yeah, it popped me that you like that match because I like it too. But the branding is always kind of the topic, right? It's like it's just fun. Quickly, side note, Jeff, feel free to check it on the Late Night Green episode. See, it's in the range of 10 to 15, in which Bob O'Neill, God bless him, picks that as his match of the week, and we all just sit there quietly while Bob prays it, and then it all agree that it sucks. Brock versus Mojo. It doesn't suck, but it's just kind of, I don't know. I think that's one of those deals where, like, I can almost speak for you, but I think you and I kind of can't separate that match from what like we want those two wrestling each other to be.
Mm-hmm.
So like when it just becomes like Joe and Brock like sweating a lot and just sitting in a hold, it's kind of a bummer. But
yeah,
because Bob, that stuff isn't apparent to Bob, you know, like he's just watching it as it is. So
right,
a lot of people like it. I don't really.
Yeah, I'm not big on it. I never was in the first place.
The program rules,
yes,
like the promo segments and stuff. But anyway, enough about 2017. That'll be another project we definitely won't do. Now, this fascinates me, stuff like this. I talk about Foley. This is the Rumble 96. In 2 years, Austin is like firmly on his way. He wins the Rumble, right? And here is the month he shows up. Is this the Rumble? It has to be, right? This is the Rumble where he's supposed to make it really deep.
Mm-hmm.
He like slips
and he gets that. Yeah.
Early days here for the Ringmaster. Talk us through it, like the whole thing. Obviously not the most critically acclaimed gimmick by any means, but it's his start, right? So go for it.
A bad fit. The haircut is not a good look for him at the time. Like, it was a bad fit. He's still a good worker. I was surprised at how long his Matt Hardy match was because he wrestles Matt Hardy on Raw as his debut match. And
brother, hang on a second. Hold the phone. We are here in March 2022, and those two fuckers have been in the news this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 26 years later, I know.
So if you go back to 96, there's not many gentlemen from 1970 professional wrestling that are still hanging around, you know.
No. I'm trying to think of who would be hanging around that was in 1970.
Yeah, that's wild. Like, because when you think about
Flair even Flair and Lawler hadn't quite debuted yet. They were almost there a couple years just before. Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That stuff always interests me. But yeah, it doesn't work here for Austin Problem. And obviously, look, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel for Austin, right? But not yet, not quite yet.
Yeah.
This one's a bummer. You talked about it last time and you mentioned him in the Rumble. Vader arrives and it's the best angle of the month, and I couldn't agree more. I adore it as an introduction to Vader, him attacking Gorilla. it's a classic case of trying to enjoy this angle within the confines of like what it was, rather than thinking of what could have been next.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get off to a better start,
Right.
and they nail that part. Oracle, talk us through this angle of the month: Vader arriving and attacking Gorilla on
It's
scene.
awesome. He and Savio have a fun little TV match. He beats
Yeah.
Savio. He hits another Vader bomb on Savio, beats him up. Refs come out. Jack Doan, long-time WF referee, takes a fucking Leon White slap to the face
Yes.
that could not have felt good. Poor
Nah,
little Jack
man.
Doan's head is like spinning around like a dadgum carousel after he gets slapped by Vader. And Vader power bombs him to oblivion.
Yeah.
And then Gorilla comes down and gets in his face. Gorilla's great here.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved Gorilla as the
Because he had that presence, right? He
yeah.
commanded respect. It was the
Mhm.
people loved him.
And like Vince is great during all this. That's Gorilla Monsoon. I can't believe he did that.
I think it's such a like. I think it's such a shame that the concept of the authority figure has become like, because it's been done one way for so often, people just hate the idea of it, and it's like,
Mhm.
this is such an awesome feel. Like having just a legend babyface that everyone loves, because you can
Yeah.
do something like this every once in a while. You can't do it often, because if you do it
Yep.
often, it has no effect. But
Yep. I always liked when like Gorilla was around in '97 with like getting Austin's face
yes, of
after Austin
course.
had been like already fully
Hmm.
fledged, like not like '98 Austin, but like he was already
Hmm.
the Austin character.
Yeah.
It was always fascinating. But and then Austin would like cuss out Gorilla was hilarious.
By the way, we're talking about people like God bless him, but Vader in the Hall of Fame. Right, that was a story this
Yeah,
week too.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I wish that happened a couple of years back,
I
but
know. I wish he would have gotten to be able to do that. Whether opinion on WWE Hall of Fame or not, the guy deserved his flowers and be
yeah,
able
and
to
it
live
mattered.
to
We know it mattered to him
experience
for a
that.
fact, right? He's
Yes,
pretty open about it.
yes.
So
Uh, from all accounts, a lot of people didn't like working with Vader because he was stiff. But from what I understand, he was actually a pretty nice guy.
yeah,
At least from
yeah,
Paul Orndorff might not have been a fan, but
he just hit guys really hard, man.
yeah,
It is what it is, right? It
right,
is what it
right.
is.
Yeah, but this angle was great, man. He
Great, great.
splashes grill in the corner under the ref and then hits the Vader bomb and he's yelling at Cornette. Cornette's freaking out and Vader goes down and yells at Vince. I can dig you too, Mr. McMahon. He calls him Mr. McMahon, which is hilarious. And then Vince goes, I can't believe you did that.
By the way, where are you at on the Cornet pairing? I think they're really good together. I really do
Cornette's
like it.
great. Cornette's great with Vader. Yeah.
Yeah. Should have been a bigger deal. It's a shame.
Yeah.
You mentioned the present deal here, present WBF. Piper comes in interim. This was the best promo.
It's just it probably sounds absurd, but Piper's just I get why people like I don't even think it's like it's just he's so completely insane and all over the place
Yeah.
that it's incredibly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
The best part is his opening line is a great troll on Vince. He goes, "Does that mean I'm your boss?" And Vince is like, Vince's facial
It's
expression.
wild. Like he's like I don't even think about it a lot, but like the idea that he's 96 is as crazy as Piper is kind of lost on me.
Oh yeah,
I just think of him as different worlds. Like it's
it's
so
it
strange.
yes, it's insane. Then of course, 25 years ago today was when he was cutting that promo on the first Spring Break Nitro. It was posted all over on Twitter
Oh
today, and
God, yes,
he's
indeed.
just bashing the WWF wildly for no reason because it's Piper and
Like
Earthquake is like in like a kilt and
yeah, that was all over social. You're right. Like imagine if you'd have stopped Vince and Piper at this moment in time, January 1996, said, "Hey man, in 11 months, Piper's going to be working a heel Hulk Hogan at Starcade."
yeah,
Like
yeah,
what the fuck? Like
yeah,
it's bonkers. It's absolutely insane. But you love the promo, and it
yeah.
is. You said it.
He was Piper. I
It's
mean, if you've
Piper.
seen a
Yeah,
Piper promo, particularly one after like 1992,
yeah.
it's basically Piper just completely being a motor mouth and
Well, it's a really interesting progression to watch because his thing was always that he was always talking. right?
Right.
But as a younger guy, it was framed as like he had an answer for everything, and he was like this really like sharp.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like at some point, and it feels like there was no transition; it just happened like overnight. He then turned into like he always talks, but he's an insane old guy.
Yes, like especially like from like from this point on till like
Yes.
basically till his passing, right? Like
Yeah.
um the last 20 years of his life, whenever he'd come on TV or wrestle or whatever, WCW or whatnot, he was a complete madman. It was part of it was fun and part of it was just terrible. But like
Yeah.
it was still
Especially at the
Piper.
end. Some of
Oh, I
the
know.
last stuff, some of the Piper's Pits, they, oh my good God, I don't know why they kept doing them.
Oh, I know. But dude, that dude still had a presence. Like, I know
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about it earlier, and we'll get to it, but dude, that entrance at Halloween Havoc
Yeah.
96, where the bagpipes just come out and start playing, it's
Mhm.
legitimately gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. And you're right. When he gets on the mic and starts going full Piper on the mic, it's like
Yeah, it
some of it's
loses its
good,
way,
some of
but
it's just completely absurd. But when he comes out and the look on his face and the presence he brings when he comes out, it's like one of the most cool moments like ever when he comes out.
it, the way that they capture the idea that he's like an actual ghost from Hogan's place, just great. Great,
Mhm.
epic moment. By the way, in fear of going in circles here, brother, we just talked about dudes that have been in the news. Like, we just watched a pay per view dog collar match that was basically a love letter to Piper. Like,
Yeah.
and the reason I'm saying this stuff is like, and I know you're aware, but it's like, look look at the significance of what we're covering right now and how long
Mhm.
it lived. Like this is obviously Piper's not in his prime; he's a decade beyond it. But it's just interesting. It really is.
Right.
There's so many moving pieces. There's such a plethora of stars. It's just fascinating to look back. Um, yeah, bless Piper. It's he's always fun to have on TV around here. Okay, let's go back to the Rumble. You mentioned the Brett Taker match you're not a big fan of. Is this the deal? Someone in the chat said it. Is this the match where Diesel gets really pissed about the finish?
Yes, and
Yeah,
the and it's a, he comes out and costs Taker the match, and then he does the famous middle finger up in the
yeah.
air.
There you go. Yeah.
And that was a big deal at the time. So he
hmm
flipped them off in WWF pay-per-view, like, that's like
Yeah,
the first bird,
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Have you seen Kevin Nash claim that he was the original Steve Austin?
Yes, and then he booked himself as Stone Cold Kevin Nash in the spring of '99. That's not a joke. You've
It's
seen those
fucking,
things.
it
You've
just
seen that
fucking
shit.
rules. So the reason I popped for that was kayfabe commentaries are uploading like a couple of their shoots every month, and they've uploaded the guest booker that Nash did. So I don't know if you've seen those
Mhm.
guest bookers, Oracle, but like they bring in a guy that booked and they give him a scenario and they book it. It's the one where he has the bald, the very famous video where he has the whiteboard.
Mhm.
And like his job is to book the WWF if him and Razor never left. And like watching this fucking guy, like piece, like he's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'd put the WWF title on Razor, and like, it's just like, really, man, is it going to be that simple? And watching him talk about himself and talk about the angles, and like Bob tweeted he was going to watch it, and I said, you're going to learn some shit from this, which is that dude don't need any fucking book anytime soon. He's God bless him, he's smart, but he don't need to be booking a territory. Incredible.
Well, he said he wanted to book Nitro like the Larry Sanders Show.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
That pops me.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy because like he's definitely smarter than the average wrestler, right? By a distance, I would say. But like you listen to him booking the territory, it's like, well, man, hang on a second, what we got here? It's interesting. I was intrigued by what Dave gave the main event of the Rumble. He gave it 2 3/4. So you're saying very generous of Uncle Dave, right?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. It was just
Just boring for you. Didn't
it's
do
just
it.
boring. Like, not that Brett didn't try, right? Like, and even Taker tried to sell. It was just the their 97 matches are great. Like, I really like their 97
Yeah.
matches a good deal, especially the, whatever, the one where Shawn
Where they did the angle with Sean, yeah. At the end.
yeah, I'm talking about the one where Shawn beats Bulldog for the European title.
Oh, I thought you meant the one where is it SummerSlam where they do the angle with Sean?
Yeah, and that match is good too, and that has
Yes, that's
that's
yeah.
one of the all-time great finishes that
Yes,
SummerSlam
it is.
97 match because it's legitimate, actual angry heat from people.
Mm-hmm.
And I for a second I thought there was actually going to be near Riot when I watched it a few years ago for the first time. Yeah, but
Yes, is it so? Any comment on the many political pieces of this Brett Taker thing, where Diesel claims that Taker got hot at Brett, and it was this whole ordeal? Any read on any of that stuff? Any of those shenanigans?
I'm pretty sure the cage match at Rage in the Cage sucks too, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, you get what you get.
It's
I
a shame because
suppose.
Brett's first few months with Title Reign are so great, and it's like I'm mixed on the Iron Man too, but I don't hate the Iron Man. It's just
I've only watched it like a handful, and I change my mind every time.
right.
It's very much a deal. This sounds dumb, but I think you'll know where I'm coming from. You'll watch it one time, not like it, and then if you go into the next viewing with like, I don't really think much of this, it might win you over because it's like better than you remember.
Right.
And the cycle goes on. We'll talk about it. It's a big topic coming up here in a couple months. Elsewhere on the Rumble, Goldust defeats Razor Ramon for the IC title. We talked about the
Marlena
start.
debuts. I forgot to mention that
There you go.
she debuts Terry Runnels.
We talked about the start of this feud. Where are we at now, man? This is obviously a big moment for Goldust. Let's go through it a little bit.
So they go further into the he gets like a razor tattoo, sends him flowers, and Vince has to I think it must have been Glad or somebody got rightfully concerned about the angle and was like, okay, what's going on? So Vince had to read some hilarious statement of like, we are not it was like, we are not homophobic, Vince and his and like all this other stuff, and so they wisely kind of turned it into a little bit more of is Goldust. Boy, that's a
Yeah.
you could
That's layered. That's layered.
Yeah. That was not on purpose, folks.
Factual.
That was just a
We're around 42 deep, folks. You get what you get, okay?
But I'm laughing because that was a funny slip up. But they ended up making it more of like is he playing mind games with him? Is he just trying to get him so he can get the IC title? Which is a little bit more of a grayer and a little bit more of a safer play than just being this man's overtly gay, Their match at the Rumble was not bad. They played on the suspicions of Goldust's sexuality, whatever, but they ended up having a decent match, and Goldust won, and Marlena debuted as his manager there. But the best part about this whole thing is they had this really vicious brawl at the end of the Raw and the go home.
Right.
Where they're brawling in the hallway, and then they're brawling out in the snow, and Goldust is fleeing, and it rules, but at the same time, when you think about the angle, it's kind of but at the same time, it still kind of rules.
Still Dustin in a brawl, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And look, Razor's punch, we know that's
Yeah.
the one thing everyone agrees on with him, right? Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pieces still be pretty fun. The opener of the Rumble, GCW star Jeff Jarrett, Ahmed Johnson. Talk us through their feud, man. I mean, we've had his whole run here so far.
Why didn't they let Ahmed go over? The finish is Jarrett just jumps off and hits him with a guitar. And Ahmed wins by DQ.
I don't know. They did this stuff a lot, though.
Jarrett was there for 2 months and he left.
Wait, are you saying that Jeff Jarrett in a pay-per-view match in January would refuse to do a job, perhaps?
I mean, it's possible.
It happens. How's Ahmed Johnson coming along here, Oracle?
Ahmed was had a hot couple of first months, and he's kind of been missing in action a little bit. Of course, he ends up being MIA for a long time once his injuries start to rack up. Poor guy. But yeah, he gets hot again after Mania, and gets really hot in the spring and summer, and then he has a terribly timed injury. He was supposed to win the IC title, I think.
Yeah.
And we'll We'll get to that when we get to it. But he's already getting over the Pearl River Plunge. Is a great finisher.
Right. And as we know, Oracle, wrestling expert once told us, Robert O'Neill, Kurt Angle before Kurt Angle.
Every time.
For all we know, on the Green Grappler, in a different timeline, we could be covering, Genesis 06, Samoa Joe versus Ahmed Johnson. Could have happened, right? It was a different time. We don't know.
Right.
Alternate universe out there somewhere. Congrats to Bob on the greatest comparison ever made. I'll bring it up on every show. If I forget, someone in the chat should remind me to bring it up. Is that good? Even when we get to the point where Ahmed's not on TV, I'll just I'll kind of find my way to that. So shout out to Bob.
When we get to WCW 2000 and he's Big T, we're gonna make the.
He's back. Okay. Also featured on the Run for the Body Donners, they lose in the tag title match, right? They changed the tag belts, which means Sonny is here, and you talk about, I used Austin as the example earlier, but you talk about people that's lives are about to transform. Sonny is about to just explode, right? It's gonna be, different people react to things differently, so it is what it is. A lot happens after this, but for the next couple of years, she's genuinely become one of the biggest stars in the industry, which is it's nuts. Talk us through that team, that act arriving, and Sonny exploding in popularity here shortly.
Yeah, they definitely start to tap into the looks and presentation when it comes to that. They have these segments on Raw now where it's like her in a bathtub or whatever going. Well, you can, she uses the term raw. I'll leave it at that. I could quote it, but
that's fun.
So yeah, there's lots of things, that happens a lot. Of course, she's now like the flirtatious manager for the Body Donnas, which includes Dr. Tom Pritchard, who has just had a brief run in ECW, and Joey Styles took a dig at him and said he literally flipped to WWF.
Yeah, proud he was of himself probably when he said that too.
I know.
Yeah. In all seriousness, and I don't know quite how Meech typed this, but Sonny was great as a valet. Seriously, she was really
in Smoky Mountain.
Yeah,
and she was great in WWF. I mean her the fame and whatever else got to her, and she it's been an up and down battle for her for a long time, unfortunately. But she was very, very, very talented throughout the entire 90s. Has runs everywhere, all three companies.
It's just a shame, man.
We'll see her all over the place. From we'll see her in WWF through '98. Then she'll be in ECW, and then she'll be in WCW with Candido for a cup of coffee for a few months. 2000. So
ECW stuff is tough, man. I mean, I love Paul Lee in a sort of there's a charm to his carny shit, but some of the stuff with Sonny's brutal, right?
Oh yeah, those pieces on her and her life and stuff.
Yeah, there's an episode of TV that's literally just they do a couple cuts from the ring, but it's basically all about her doing an expose on the business, and it's I don't know if you really care about this one, Paul. It feels like you're just trying to make the most of this.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm pretty sure the deal was that he wanted Smoky Mountain tape from Cornette. And Candido convinced Jim to send it to Paul Lee based on the idea that Paul would send him some money. And obviously, I mean, of course he didn't send him any money. It's very, in all seriousness, watching that stuff is actively uncomfortable. So
yeah,
we'll get there one day, many, many, many months away.
Yeah, about a decade.
It's just it's sad to think about the idea that even within this project, we'll see the ups and downs. That's a shame.
Yeah.
It's only a few years away. Okay. Elsewhere, Phineas Godwin is here.
Midian, naked Midian.
Indeed.
See, that's the Midian I remember when I was a kid. There was a guy running around in a thong or naked or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. You feel with Regal. It's weird. Imagine being my mother and your 7-year-old is watching a naked man.
We've talked about this on the grin. It's just it is interesting, that part of it, right? the boom period, but some of the damage caused by said boom period is really interesting. It's just interesting time. Phineas Godwin, great wrestling stuff happening here. Oracle, very exciting.
They came out and wrestled the Body Donnas, and it's actually a fun little TV match because the Donnas go to workers and
yes, they were.
Schlesinger and Pierce, as we can pop and call them that if we want.
There you
go. They're not that bad, honestly. To be honest, they really aren't that bad. They're kind of just lumbering big dudes, right? Like, but they came out with, of course, Hillbilly Jim's officially their manager, and they did like the little hoedown skip with Sunny and out of nowhere, and she did it with all of them and reacted to it great. They squashed the Body Donnas. It was fine. I just popped when Phineas came out. I legitimately pumped my fist because I knew the guy.
Do you remember? So they're for those of you who don't know, they're WCW 93.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the team that they debuted on TV that they all had masks and they did one job match and they won one squash match and then just vanished from they WCW is fuck. I need to find who this team was now. They had this big presentation. They all had masks. They came out and beat some local guys and they just never appeared again. Peak WCW. God bless them. I need to find who this is because it would annoy me. Same timeline, which is why I bring it up. Anyway, I saved this for last because I do not think there are 25 people watching this live and probably a couple hundred people watch this after. I need everyone that watches this to know this. You have heard about the Billionaire Ted skits, okay? You've heard about them. You may have even seen some clips from them. And I'm assuming Oracle's about to confirm what I'm going to tell you here. If you have not watched one of these segments in full, let alone all of these segments in full, you do not realize just how bad they are. And this is a hot take, a big statement, I know, considering the stuff that wrestling has aired. These are some of the worst segments in the history of Monday Night Raw. Think of the ground that covers. Oracle, why is it not widespread, common knowledge that these were not just dumb? They are fucking terrible, awful television. Some of the worst stuff they've ever done, genuinely. People they talk about it as part of the war, but it's no, forget the war. They're bad. Am I wrong?
No. This shit was it's just so poorly acted. It's it's not even that. It's just so it's just downright terrible. It's not even fun. It's not even ironically fun. It's not like Hogan burning the Observer or something. No. This shit is just terrible. It's and it's so it's so bullshit at the same time. And it's I always thought it was smart that Guy Evans wrote in his book and Bischoff mentioned or whatever in the Nitro book that Vince made it him versus Ted Turner when it was really him versus Bischoff.
Yep.
Because let's face it, Turner didn't give two shits about WC. I mean, he liked wrestling,
Right. He had bigger things to focus on.
It was just a corporate. It was a piece of the corporate structure that they had.
Yeah.
They didn't care about them. It was really Vince versus Bischoff, and Bischoff got played when he tried to have Vince wrestle him at Slamboree '98. That was a mistake. Though to this day, the biggest mistake he could have made and pulled right, he should have let DX into the building.
Absolutely, because that would have just been checkmate. What are you gonna do? Fight us?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Vince would have.
I've just remembered. Hang on. Have you seen when Nash explains that he was standing at the door, saying "open it," and they wouldn't let him?
Yes, I believe it too.
Just imagine Kev standing there with his hands in his pockets.
Oh yes, yeah, with his hat on. He's not mad, He's like, "Come on, man, just open the door." I mean, what? I mean, come on, man. Open the door, and then all of a sudden, Kevin Sullivan's 150 yards behind that way. The ice bag. Wave ahead it. The Titanic is sinking. Shouting in his Boston accent from
Fucking rules. Anyway, I'm sorry. Bill and Ted.
I'm gonna bring up that stupid Kevin Sullivan story
Oh,
every
it's
time
just
on this fucking
great.
show.
It's great. Yeah, I don't think people realize how bad these are, man. I really don't. They're as bad as it gets, quite frankly. They're awful.
I'm just thinking now of like Nash and like Conan and like Luger like sitting around outside outside this giant garage door, and like
Yeah,
Luger's kind of chuckling, and Nash is literally just I could just see it because he's not. It's just his demeanor. He's just standing
yeah.
there going, "Why do you want? Come on, guys, just open the door."
They're all his friends too.
Yeah.
Like, just fuck. Um, yeah, it's incredible. Now, I have to say, we both like Savage at this time. Hogan, not so much. These segments are so bad that if you were a Raw fan, even you would have been like, "Man, fuck this! I want to see what these guys are doing on nights. This is bullshit." Like, they're so mean in a not in like an unfunny, petty way that you can't help but root for the old fucks, right? You can't help it.
Right, right. And at the same time, it's like they attacked Gene Okerlund of all people. And it's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
come on. It's one thing to dig on and like you could tell Vince had some like personal vendettas against. He was like Savage, the what was it he called him? It's three specific teams. He's
Oh
attacked
god.
Hogan for being a has been, Savage for basically being a traitor and a turncoat, and and then Mean Gene for being just like just he was just there for the money.
Amazing.
That was all those segments were clearly through the Vins or through the. I almost said the Vins. That kind of works.
There you go. The
The
bins,
lens
yeah.
of Vince, the Vins lens,
Yeah.
the Vince lens.
Yeah, they're like a great example of how lacking awareness that dude can be.
Yeah. And
Right.
then when he's on the Pat McAfee show a week or two ago, he goes, "Well, those internet fans are just a bubble of that, and they don't really know." I'm thinking,
And then these fucking bootlicker journalists are like, see? Made a good point. Go fuck yourself, made a good point. Jesus Christ, man. Get off your hands and knees. Holy shit. Anyway, fucking live tweeting this thing like it's. Anyway, enough about that. Oracle, January's a big month for WWF. How did it go for them in 1996?
uh, just overall.
Yes, to put a bow on it. How was the? I mean, it was there only 1 week, but was it like
I mean, it was better. Like I thought they did some good angles. Like Piper coming in, Vader angle was great.
right?
Um, Diesel's becoming a little bit more interesting as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not a lot of great matches, but like we're starting to get. 96 is a really fascinating year for WWF.
Yeah,
One that I
yeah.
actually enjoy quite a bit.
I think it's kind of underrated, honestly. I really
Right,
do.
right. But yeah, like yeah, I mean, it was a decent month for them. Like not quite as good as WCW was. I don't think it had anything quite as I mean, other than the Billionaire Ted skits, it wasn't quite as bad
Yeah,
as Hogan, But
fair. Yeah, I think their TV is so much more like they have their formula, which gives it strengths and weaknesses compared to Nitro, which is very much a kind of flourish and clean slate. It's interesting, an interesting contrast. Anyway, that was January 1996. Oracle. We're almost exactly at 2 hours. Best
mm,
you can tell the folks what they have to look forward to here in February.
February, ECW's got a big ass Extreme Bash, CyberSlam being the big one. It's like the first. It was like the little internet convention that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Big weekend. A lot of fans would travel for that, including one or two that I know.
Wow.
But got In Your House, Rage in the Cage. Sean and Owen has been announced for that. Of course, Owen will get Sean's title shot if
Mm-hmm.
one wins. Brett and Diesel in a cage for the title. Super Brawl 6, which has had almost no build whatsoever, which I will criticize them for some on that. And that's like a week away. And they've got a double cage main event with Hogan and Giant and Flair and Savage for the title in a
They
cage.
sure do.
And there's quite the angle that occurs in the Flair Savage finish.
Indeed.
But I think there's like a Public Enemy and Nasty Boy street fight, which I'm unironically looking forward to opening the show. But I'm sure it's not as good as I want it to be, but it'll still be fun. But yeah, so there's lots of things to look forward to. More Pillman madness. Respect you, Booker Man. So on and so forth.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Quickly to answer this question, Jeff says, meant to ask earlier, is this the month that Mean Gene starts heavily plugging your former WWF champions coming to WCW? Has that started happening yet, Oracle?
I don't think he's mentioned that yet. I think because when in the Nitro book, Nash points out that it was the booking of the Rage of the Cage that pissed him off.
That's the one that I was thinking this because the
So
argument
it's probably in February. It's probably in late February or March when Gene starts doing that.
The argument is it's not the Rumble match, it's this one, because the argument is that Diesel is saying, or Nash is saying, that Diesel should have Brett beat and then Taker interferes rather than it being kind of that's what the argument is about, which we'll talk about next time on the next edition of the Historical Oracle. Folks, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Oh no, it'll be 6 p.m. Eastern time, hour later than usual, for the free agents. Jason and I are going to be talking about Tony Storm. And then Oracle and I'll be back on the world famous Late Night Green. We're going to attempt to not have any fights this week. We're going to,
I'm only going to be on for. I'll try to be on for the first hour Rampage review. Then I'll probably be out because I'll be at my folks. So
we have even less people standing between Shoot and I as we confront each other once again.
Right.
It'll be problematic, folks. So sign up to see that at latenightgrin.com. You sign up for just $1. Follow us on the Twitter machine at Late Night Grin. I'm going to retweet that Grin Grappler thing so that people see that. That'll be coming out here in a couple of weeks. There's a lot going on, folks. I may even start doing like a solo show that's like morning radio next week, I've decided, which is a pop.
Yes, that rules.
Yeah, that is almost exclusively to pop, you and I. Just the concept of it's funny. I text Shoot, what should I call it? And he said Cup of Joe, which popped me even more. And then I imagine like a logo. Yeah, this will be a thing that probably gets announced tomorrow. Anyway, this has been the Historical Oracle, folks. We appreciate you joining us. We love doing this series. And 1996 is underway. Enjoy the world famous outro. Speak soon, guys.